people in the running world love the running world. It's like been in it since the age of 5, been running since the age of 5, love running. It's my first love. But some people are just not smart. Like, and I think very, very in like this niche, like go read any book on marketing or listen to any top 50 business podcast. When you have an audience and when you grow an audience, you sell things. It makes sense to do. That's why it's called a business. And like, if you have a massive audience, like granted, I haven't like sold anything really yet. Will I make merch one day? Absolutely. Will I like branch in all these different separate venues? Absolutely. Because that's what a business is. And that's what a business does. Just like when you go on Amazon, they're selling things like, and it always frustrates me, but also makes me laugh of just like people who do ad reads or promote things, it's like they don't hate you if you don't buy it. And that's not the point. It's for those people who are interested in running their first 5K and they're like, I trust Sam, I'm going to buy his training plan. And wow, what a beautiful transaction there where they get to have a good training plan and race a 5K from one of their favorite athletes.
Yeah.
Like, how is that bad in any sense? And yes, if we did a 45-minute podcast and we're promoting something the whole time, probably not the best look. But also, again, the internet is so large and vast that even if that was the case, which it'll never be on this podcast anyway, like just stop listening and who cares? Like, go listen to another podcast. Go, like, there's so many other good podcasts or pieces of content. And that's why I always laugh with like, I mean, I get as do you. So we're kind of in the same boat here and I don't really read it anymore, but occasionally friends will pass on stuff from Let's Run. And it's like, you hate my podcast? Great. Go listen to another one. Like, yeah, I don't really care that you hate it.
I've been, I think it was like around 2019. It was like right when I felt like I've started to be a pro runner, where I felt like I really was hitting my stride. Tinman, you know, was really catching momentum. Like, and I remember at that point, I remember like reading like a Let's Run thread, and it just destroyed me. Like, it just like put me down to the dumps. And I was like, wait, why did I just do that to myself? Like, I'm like PRing in every race. Like, I'm working my ass off day in and day out to like launch this business. And then I just let these random people pull me down and be like, oh yeah, I do suck, you know? And I remember after that, I was like, man, I'm never gonna let the like outside voices, you know. I think it's good to have your bubble popped. I think it's good to get criticism. Like, I truly do think it's good to like get out of your shell and realize like, oh, maybe I do sound bad, or maybe I do need to change this, or like, I think it's good to take criticism, you know, but I think it's awful to let it define you and let it really dictate you, or change like your core values if those values are true. And I think that was the biggest learning experience. But I did recently, just because of all this stuff going on with our team right now, like came up on a run, like some Let's Run thread, and like my classic, yeah, well, Sam's been living off his family's hedge fund for all these years professionally. And I'm just like, where is that hedge fund? And I just got such a kick out of it again. I'm like, I could really use that right now, like as an unsponsored athlete, to kind of like maybe pull some money out of that and keep me going for another year. Because if I don't, you know, like I'll certainly be done in the sport quicker than I thought. But at the same time, like I'm at the point now, not to change gears too much, but I'm at the point now where I feel like I've learned so much with launching community events, with marketing, with managing budgets, with full creative rollouts, storytelling, that I have a lot to offer a brand or a company, or
you could get a job in 2 seconds.
Maybe I'll just do it myself, you know? Again, who knows? And I'm not saying I'm done with Tinman Elite. Like, I'll always continue my work with Tinman Elite. Maybe not to the same degree as I did in the past, but like I will always be on the board as a founder, and I will always be working on that. Like, that will always be, you know, an olive branch relationship to whatever degree, which I still don't know what it's going to be, which is crazy. I wish I had more clarity on it, but I don't. But I feel like I would be silly to just run. You know what I mean? Like that seems like crazy to me, to be like at my age, to have this skill set and like the things that I do know how to do successfully, that I have the return on investment analytics, you know, to prove that I can do this successfully over a long period of time and in a sustainable way. That I would love to be able to have the opportunity to run and work for a company. And I think that's a crazy concept that it's like, why are more people not doing that? Because I think it
Mhm.
is the situation where it's like way too many pros are, because you have to be, because of how competitive it is, be so dialed in. And if I'm being brutally honest with myself, I think this past Olympic year and even in the past few years, like I've even taken steps back from like how much day-to-day work I do on Tinman Elite from what I used to do, and given that work to other people. And I think that's hurt, Tinman Elite in a way that I just wanted to be a pro runner. And then when it was time for me to really sink my teeth into, okay, this rollout we're going to do, build out a lookbook or whatever, then execute it. But I should have kept doing more, I think, for sure. And that's not a regret, because if I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have seen if I could have made another huge jump in running. But it seems crazy, back to my main point, it seems crazy to me at this point, um, not to also, if I'm going to run for a company, utilize also the things I can also offer, like get me into product development. Like I can help you develop a shoe better, like get me in a creative team. I can be a Swiss Army knife. And that's kind of like my elevator pitch, I guess, if I had one to give, um, to a company. It's like, I hope that, and I'm going to be patient for sure. Like I'm not just going to jump into like the first opportunity. I've already had great conversations with different companies. But I'm definitely going to be patient in terms of like what I feel like is best and at the right time to
I
balance
think
all
that
that.
Yeah, I think the tricky thing there is, um, life is not all about money, for sure not. But I think it's a healthy desire to want to make a good amount to provide for your family and friends and future kids, grandkids, and
I got a
to live a
wedding to
nice
plan.
life.
I got a
Exactly. Yeah.
sheesh,
Hey, congrats
bro.
about that, by the way.
Thank you
Congrats
so
on
much.
he's
Thank
an
you.
engaged man.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
but I think that within the two problems with these companies, of which I love many of the companies and the impacts they have on the sport, absolutely remarkable. Um, but it's such bureaucracy, right? Even when I work with specific companies, it's like I have to talk to so and so who has to talk to so and so, and it's like, oh my gosh, like who are the decision makers here? Such bureaucracy that every department and every one of these companies, for the most part, I definitely have some different experiences with specific brands. So one, that, and then two, I'm just like realizing that you can't really make money in the like significant money if you're a part of a company, unless you're like so basically I think the entrepreneurial, like, yes, there are so many falsehoods about like owning your own company and like the freedom and it's like you have no days off if you own something. No days off. I don't take Christmas. Like, yes, I have more step away days, but that's pretty non-existent. Summing up this rant here because I'm going off on too many tangents. Basically, bureaucracy, one, and then two, I think that the separate thing is just it's very actually hard to make meaningful income within these companies, which is why I
Yes.
always tell younger people, like, at most, there's some stat out there on millionaires, but yeah, most are not like you just join a 9 to 5 and you can make decent money, but you're never really going to
Because you're
make something.
replaceable, right? Like that's like
Exactly.
that's like the bottom line, right? It's like, hey, it's not worth continuing to raise your bonuses 10K, 20K every single year when we could just hire another 26-year-old that's really excited about wanting to work for us and would do it for next to nothing just because they need the opportunity
Yes.
to start their LinkedIn resume. And yeah, you're right with that. And I think another reason, the biggest thing I think I've learned over the years with working with these companies is like no one wants to get fired. You know what I mean? Like that's the other thing I always need to like remind myself is like at the end of the day, a lot of these people, because it's not theirs, you know what I mean? It's like, I guess we've talked about Adidas, so I'll just use Adidas as like the place card holder, even though this is not about them specifically. Um, no, just kidding. Is that no one wants to get fired. You know what I mean? So like everyone's doing their job for what they're being told. You know what I mean? And to all of a sudden like take a risk and like do a really crazy marketing campaign or something that would probably really excite people to see, um, it's not worth it. You know what I mean? It's like at the end of the day, that person that is signing Adidas athletes needs to tell their boss, we had this many people on podiums at marathon championships. We had this many medalists this year. Like that's their stats to keep their jobs, And like that's what their bosses are telling them. So even if they want to sign Tinman Elite. You know, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt where it's like they are like, yeah, you're right, 9 million views over all these years. You know, like we've seen their shoe sales when we did it with them firsthand. Like we know they're worth every penny. Um, but that's not a part of our mission right now that my boss is telling me. And we don't have the budget for it if we sign gout gout, you know, or whatever. So it's like, it is bureaucracy, but it's everyone staying in line, you know, and that's the nature of these big companies. And that's where I think I enjoyed the most with Tinman Elite. And when you are starting your own small business, you can do whatever you want, you know, and you can take risks. And if you fail, it's like, who really cares, you know? And that was the same thing with Tinman Elite, is like, we started like paying so many different salaries, and it's like, okay, we need to hit this amount of sales every year. It's like we became that too, and that's the natural evolution of any business, where it's like all of a sudden I wasn't making or selling the stuff I really loved or wanted to do, or like roll out this new logo design, where I'm like, no, like I need to, this collection has to be 50K in Q3, or else these people aren't getting paid their full salaries. And that's a scary thing, all of a sudden have that responsibility. And there's this fear factor that all of a sudden drives decision making, which I think leads to stagnation. Yeah.